All right, so today we're going deep on Doug Burgum,
Yeah.
former tech CEO, current North Dakota governor, and a name that's coming up more and more these days when we talk about American energy.
Well, yeah, he's kind of an interesting figure,
Yeah,
right? Because he's coming from kind of two worlds that we don't often see together.
right.
Silicon Valley and the oil fields. And so
Yeah,
how does that play out when we start talking about national energy policy?
right. And you've given me a ton of material to go through for this.
Oh, yeah.
We've got interviews, we have policy papers,
hmm
we've got a Rumble video with Elon Musk. What's going on there?
Well, that's the fun of a deep dive,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
We have to look at things from all angles.
Yeah.
And with Burgum, there are a lot of angles.
So our goal today is to try to break down his vision for American energy.
Okay.
Where does he stand on the big issues?
Right.
What's his plan? And most importantly, what could it all mean for you, the everyday energy consumer?
Yeah. And so I think the best place to start is with what you might call his sort of core philosophy,
Okay.
which is this idea of American energy dominance.
He says that a lot.
He does say it a lot.
Yeah.
But what does that mean, like in concrete terms? What are the policies that come from that idea?
Exactly, because it sounds good.
Right.
But what does it mean? Does it mean more drilling? Does it mean we're trying to rely less on foreign oil? Like, what are we talking about here?
So for Burgum, energy dominance really boils down to ramping up American energy production across the board.
Okay.
Oil, gas, coal, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
He wants the U.S. to be a major energy exporter, particularly to our allies.
Okay, so kind of an America first approach to energy.
Exactly. And, this is where he kind of butts heads with the current administration's strategy.
Right.
He's been pretty critical of Biden's approach, particularly the reliance on countries like Venezuela and Iran for energy.
Right.
He sees them as unreliable partners, to say the least.
And he's not just talking about it, right? He's actually sued the federal government over oil leases in North Dakota. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like, this is a guy who puts his money where his mouth is.
Absolutely.
And so that kind of shows you how serious he is about boosting domestic energy production, even if it means going up against the federal government.
Yeah, he's not afraid of a fight.
No, he's not afraid of a fight.
Hmm.
All right, so we know he wants energy dominance. We know he's not afraid to fight for it.
Right.
But how does he actually plan to achieve this? Like, what are the nuts and bolts of his plan?
Well, coming from the tech world, it's no surprise that deregulation is a big part of his strategy.
I can see that. Yeah, in tech, It's all about moving fast, breaking things, innovating quickly.
Exactly. And he wants to bring that same mentality to the energy sector.
Okay.
He sees a lot of the regulations that permits all this red tape as just obstacles that are holding us back. He wants to streamline everything and just unleash American energy.
So less government intervention, more freedom for the energy industry to kind of do its thing. That's a key part of it.
Yeah.
But it's not just about getting government out of the way. He also believes in technologies as a way to solve problems.
Okay.
And the energy world, he's really betting on two things:
Okay.
carbon capture and hydrogen.
Now that's interesting to me because he's all about oil and gas,
Right.
fossil fuels, but he also sees potential in these newer technologies.
He does.
So why those two specifically?
Well, North Dakota, under his leadership, has actually become a leader in carbon capture.
Oh, wow.
So they're capturing CO2 emissions from power plants and storing them underground.
So still burning the fossil fuels, but trying to minimize the impact?
Exactly.
Okay.
And hydrogen is another way to kind of achieve that balance.
Okay.
Because it can be produced from renewable sources.
Right.
And when you burn it, it's clean energy. You don't have emissions.
So he wants to kind of have his cake and eat it, too.
Right.
Like he wants to maintain energy independence, but he also wants to address climate change.
He does. And he sees these technologies as crucial to reaching carbon neutrality.
Okay.
Without sacrificing affordable energy. So it's a tough line to walk, for sure.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of tricky, let's talk about that Rumble video with Elon Musk.
Cool.
They got into this whole thing about property taxes,
Yeah.
which seemed kind of out of left field to me. What's the connection there?
It is interesting. But Musk's argument is basically that property taxes turn homeowners into renters from the government.
It's a pretty bold idea.
It is.
And it sounds like it's actually gaining some traction. Even Ron DeSantis in Florida has talked about potentially banning property taxes.
Yeah. DeSantis sees it as a way to give homeowners more control over their property.
Okay.
But it's definitely controversial.
Oh, yeah.
Critics say it would decimate funding for things like schools, public safety, all the things that we rely on.
It's definitely something to think about, right? No more property tax bills.
Right.
But could you live with the potential consequences?
Exactly.
It's a tough one, for sure. Something to ponder.
Yeah.
And speaking of pondering, let's shift gears to another big idea that Burgum is really passionate about.
Oh.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
He seems to have a very different take on AI than a lot of people.
He's not worried about, robots taking our jobs or any of that.
Right.
He sees it as a tool, a powerful tool that can really boost productivity, especially in the energy sector.
He was talking about how his cabinet in North Dakota is experimenting with these free AI tools to try to make government operations more efficient.
Yeah, he's all about using technology to make things more efficient, whether it's in government or in the energy industry.
Yeah, and he even thinks that AI can help solve some of the big problems we're facing, like worker shortages. He even thinks that AI could potentially eliminate the parts of our jobs that we hate.
Yeah.
So very optimistic about the potential of AI.
Definitely a forward-thinking mindset for sure.
Yeah, so it's clear he's got this vision. He's very bold. He's not afraid to fight for it.
Right.
But let's be real, not everyone's on board with this.
Of course not.
He's got his fair share of critics.
Yeah, and I think the loudest voices pushing back are coming from environmental groups.
Okay.
They're really concerned about his focus on fossil fuels.
Right.
They argue that it could really accelerate climate change.
Yeah, and then there are the whispers about potential conflicts of interest. Can we really trust him to make unbiased decisions about energy policy, given his background in the industry?
It's a legitimate question.
Yeah, he founded Great Plains Software,
Right.
which was, a big player in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
So these ties are not ancient history.
Exactly. And it does raise questions about, who is he really working for?
Right.
Are his policies really about serving the public good, or are they about, helping out his friends in the fossil fuel industry?
And of course, his supporters say, no. His experience in the industry is an asset.
Right.
He understands the complexities.
They
He
do.
can navigate all the challenges.
They point to his record in North Dakota. Right. He's fostered a thriving energy sector there, while also promoting carbon capture technology.
So is he a friend or foe of the industry?
Right.
It depends on who you ask.
It really does.
And I think it speaks to this larger issue that we see in politics all the time, this revolving door between government and industry.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, who are these politicians really working for?
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question, but it's one that we have to keep asking,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to something as vital as energy policy. So we've looked at Burgum's vision.
Right.
We've heard from his critics, but are there any other visions out there
Oh, yeah.
that might offer a different path forward?
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to dig into next.
All right, sounds good. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about some of the pushback that Governor Burgum is getting for his energy vision.
Right.
Especially from environmental groups. They are not thrilled about his love of fossil fuels.
No, they're not. He's all about energy independence, keeping energy costs low. And for him, that means tapping into America's vast reserves of oil, gas, and coal.
Right.
But environmentalists say that that's a very short-sighted strategy.
Right.
That could really backfire in the long run.
They're worried about climate change.
Yeah, they're worried that, doubling down on fossil fuels is just going to make climate change worse.
Right.
They say we need to be rapidly transitioning to renewables like solar and wind power if we want to avoid the worst effects of climate change.
But Burgum says carbon capture. We can have our cake and eat it too.
Right. He says the technology is there.
What do they say to that?
Well, they say, yeah, carbon capture is a promising technology. But it's still very expensive, and it's not really proven to work at scale.
Right.
So they're concerned that, focusing on carbon capture is just going to delay the inevitable.
Right.
Which is, moving to renewables.
So it's really a debate about priorities. Burgum sees fossil fuels as the key to affordable, reliable energy.
In the short term.
Yeah, in the short term.
Right.
But environmentalists are saying, hey, we got to think long term. And we need to make bold investments now.
Right.
In a cleaner energy future.
And that's where you as an energy consumer come in.
Right.
Like every decision you make has an impact.
Right.
From the type of car you drive to how you power your home. Are you willing to pay a little more for green energy?
Right.
Are you willing to, change your lifestyle a little bit to reduce your carbon footprint?
Yeah, those are questions we all have to grapple with.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the environmental concerns.
Right.
But then there's also this issue of potential conflicts of interest.
Mhm.
Can we really trust Burgum
Right.
to make unbiased decisions about energy policy,
Right.
given his background?
Exactly. And his critics point out that, he made his fortune in the energy sector.
Right.
And they worry that his policies might be more about benefiting his former colleagues and his business associates
Right.
than the average American.
He founded Great Plains Software,
That's right.
which was, a major player in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, these are not ancient ties.
No.
So it does raise questions about, who's really pulling the strings here.
Right. Right.
Is this about, genuine public service?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it about helping out his buddies
Right.
in the fossil fuel industry?
And of course, his supporters say, no, no, no.
Right.
His experience is an asset.
Right.
He understands the industry.
He knows how it works.
He can navigate it.
They point to his record in North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
He's fostered a thriving energy sector there
Right.
while also, promoting carbon capture.
So is he a friend of the industry or a foe?
It depends who you ask.
It really does. And it kind of gets back to that whole revolving door we see in politics all the time.
That's right.
Government industry back and forth.
Mm.
Makes you wonder, who are these people working for?
It's a tough question, but it's one that we got to keep asking.
Yeah, we do, especially when we're talking about something as important as energy.
Absolutely.
So we've looked at Burgum's vision.
Right.
We've heard from the people who are criticizing it.
Mm-hmm.
But are there any other visions out there
Yeah.
that offer a different path forward?
Absolutely.
Like, what are we talking about?
Well, one of the most prominent alternatives is a much more aggressive shift towards renewables.
Okay, so instead of trying to make fossil fuels cleaner,
Right.
we just stop using them.
Yeah, essentially, yes.
Okay.
The idea is we go all in on solar, wind, geothermal, all the clean energy sources we have.
It seems like that's the direction a lot of countries are moving in.
It is. A lot of countries are setting these really ambitious targets
Mm-hmm.
for reducing carbon emissions and investing heavily in renewables.
So what are the arguments for that approach?
Well, proponents say that it's not only good for the environment, but it's actually good for the economy
Long term.
in the long run, yeah.
How so?
Well, the cost of renewable energy technologies had been plummeting
Okay.
in recent years, and it's now often cheaper than fossil fuels.
Wow.
Plus, investing in renewables creates jobs,
Okay.
in manufacturing, installation, maintenance.
Right.
It's a whole new industry
Yeah.
with huge potential.
And it makes us less reliant on other countries for energy.
Absolutely. Energy independence is a big part of the appeal.
Mm-hmm.
It insulates us from, the volatile global energy market,
Right.
and it strengthens our national security.
So it sounds like a win-win, but I imagine there are some downsides too.
There are, yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, one of the biggest challenges with renewables is that they're intermittent.
Right.
The sun doesn't always shine,
Mm.
the wind doesn't always blow.
Right.
So we need to figure out how to store the energy
Okay.
and distribute it effectively to make sure that we have a reliable supply.
So we'd have to invest a lot in grid infrastructure,
Exactly.
energy storage.
That kind of thing.
Big investments are needed.
Okay.
And we also need to think about the impact on communities that rely on the fossil fuel industry.
That's a good point.
We can't just abandon those workers and those communities.
Mm-hmm.
We need to help them transition
Right.
to new jobs in the clean energy sector.
Sounds complicated.
It's a complex undertaking, but proponents say it's a necessary transition
Mm-hmm.
if we want to create a sustainable future.
So we've got Burgum's vision,
Right.
which is about energy independence,
Affordability.
keeping costs low,
Mm-hmm.
even if it means sticking with fossil fuels for now.
Right.
And then we have this other vision, which is a much bolder shift
Yeah.
to renewables,
Mm-hmm.
even if it means, overcoming some pretty big challenges.
And it really highlights that kind of fundamental dilemma at the heart of energy policy,
Right.
which is how do we balance these competing priorities?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that energy is affordable today,
Mm-hmm.
but also protect the planet for future generations?
Yeah, no easy answers.
No easy answers. But, what we've seen is that there are a lot of different perspectives out there,
Mhm.
a lot of different approaches.
Right.
And I think understanding these different viewpoints is really crucial
Yeah,
for making informed decisions.
absolutely.
Right.
So let's bring it back to you, the listener.
Okay.
What stands out to you from what we've talked about?
Yeah.
What resonates with you?
Mm-hmm.
What questions are still bouncing around in your head?
Right. Like maybe you're really intrigued by Burgum's vision of American energy dominance.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of just unleashing American energy, becoming a global leader.
Right.
It's a powerful message, especially when you're at the pump
Yeah.
and you see those prices going up.
Or maybe you're more drawn to that renewable energy vision,
Mm-hmm.
a cleaner, more sustainable future
Right.
powered by the sun and the wind.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
You see the value of oil and gas.
Right.
Right.
But you also recognize that we got to address climate change.
We got to invest in a cleaner future.
Wherever you fall on that spectrum, I think the important thing is to stay engaged,
Yeah.
keep learning,
Mm-hmm.
and advocate for the energy future that you believe in.
Absolutely. You know, Doug Burgum has really kind of thrown down the gauntlet here.
He has.
He's challenged the conventional wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
and he's really sparked a national conversation about energy.
And that's a good thing.
It is. These are conversations we need to be having.
Yeah, this deep dive has hopefully given you the knowledge
The context.
to participate in those conversations.
Right.
So don't just sit back and absorb this information.
Mm.
Go out there, do your own research. Talk to people who have different views than you,
Mm-hmm.
and let your voice be heard.
Yeah, the future of American energy is being shaped right now.
It is.
And you have a role to play in that.
You do. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.
So we've spent a lot of time unpacking Doug Burgum's vision for American energy. And I gotta say, this deep dive's really made me think about how complicated all of this is.
Yeah, it's not just about, flipping a switch and everything changes.
No. It's
Right.
about balancing priorities, weighing risks and rewards, and ultimately making tough decisions.
Decisions that have long-term consequences for all of us.
Exactly, but we can't just throw up our hands and say it's too complicated.
Right.
We got to understand the different perspectives, the pros and cons of each approach.
That's what empowers us
Right.
to make informed decisions as individuals and as a nation.
And that's where you come in the listener.
That's right.
You have a voice in this debate.
Mm-hmm. Your choices, your actions, even your vote, all of that shapes the future of energy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are you taking away from this?
Yeah, what's sticking with you?
What questions are still swirling around in your head?
Maybe you're thinking about Burgum's vision.
Mm-hmm.
American energy dominance,
Right.
unleashing that power, becoming a global leader.
It's a powerful message.
It is, especially when you're feeling the pinch at the gas pump.
Yeah, for sure. Or maybe you're more drawn to that renewable energy future,
Mm-hmm. Clean, sustainable.
powered by the sun and wind.
Yeah,
Or maybe you're somewhere in the middle.
right.
You see the value of oil and gas, but you also know we got to do something about climate change.
Mm-hmm. We need a cleaner future.
Yeah. So wherever you fall on that spectrum,
The important thing is to stay engaged.
keep learning,
Mm-hmm.
advocate for the kind of energy future that you want to see.
Exactly.
Doug Burgum's really started a conversation here,
He's challenged the way we think about energy.
and that's a good thing.
It's a conversation we need to have.
Yeah, hopefully this deep dive has given you the information you need
The context.
to really participate in that conversation.
So don't just sit there.
Right.
Go out and do your own research.
Talk to people who disagree with you.
Exactly. And make your voice heard.
Yeah, because the future of American energy is being decided right now.
And you have a role to play in that.
That's about all the time we have for today,
Yeah.
but this is a conversation that's going to continue.
Absolutely.
So keep thinking about it, keep learning about it, and most importantly, keep talking about it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.